Today I thought I'd talk about the feeling of not wanting to be on Earth, which is something I'm deeply familiar with. While I'm actually in the feeling, my friend Ryan reached out recently, I think like last week, and she asked me how I was doing. She said she could sense that I was having a hard time, and she lives on a different continent. She's just intuitive. And when I replied honestly and said that I was fine and that, overall things were getting better all the time. And that is the overall trend. And I don't know if she sensed like the underneath of what I was feeling and I just wasn't conscious of it yet, or if she was like seeing into the future or something. But a few days after, this sense of not wanting to be on Earth came on super hard. And I felt the worst that I felt in a really long time, I think. I can remember back when I used to binge drink constantly that there were a few times when I was very hungover and in a terrible romantic relationship, that I remember one particular New Year's, which was probably maybe New Year's 2010, where I felt very awful. And I think the way I felt like last week is probably the worst I felt since then. And it's a different sort of thing because obviously if you're really hungover, there's a large physical component. But with this, I haven't had any alcohol in many years now and haven't done drugs in even longer. And it's just this sankara coming up, this old pain that's been surfacing. And yeah, so I just wanted to talk about it while I'm feeling it. There was a clearing the other day when I meditated more, and I thought about trying to record this then. But I understood at the time that this thing isn't completely out of my body for good. There are other layers that are still to surface. And so I figured I'd have another opportunity to talk about it while actually experiencing it. And then lo and behold, today, I'm feeling it quite strongly again and haven't meditated yet today either. I slept forever. I slept for like 12 hours. It was just like my body needed it. And there's this sensation that I have, maybe some of y'all can relate. It's very similar to what I feel when I know a sankara is clearing out of my body when I'm doing Vipassana and I can feel like the trauma actually clearing out. The sensation of this is very close to that. I think it's effectively doing the same thing. It happens often when I'm sleeping or I'm about to fall asleep or when I'm just waking up. And I felt it today. And often when stuff like that is clearing, I'm just so much more physically tired. And some of that is, they tell you of Vipassana courses that the desire to keep sleeping a lot can be a way that they're called nivarnas. They're like 5 friends and 5 enemies. The nivarnas are the enemies. And getting super tired and lethargic is one of the enemies to keep an eye out for. It's a way that they say the sankara can kind of try to trick you so that the trauma stays in you longer because it doesn't want to leave. And so that's related, but also sometimes your body just needs a lot of sleep, right? As a human. And last night was, to some extent, that was what was going on. So I slept like 12 hours, even though in the nights prior to that, I usually do a pretty good job of just letting my body sleep as long as it needs to. It's pretty rare that I'll schedule something that has a definitive, hard time in the morning that requires me to get up at a certain time. And I kind of wonder, I know at least for high school students, for kids in school, that idea of how early, especially high school kids, when you're growing so much and you're just so exhausted all the time, I think it's super insane that they make, at least in the States, in public schools like I went to, when I went to school, which is 20 years ago now, they just make you get up so fucking early to go to school, and you're just so exhausted all the time. And that structure is preparing you for the weird corporate world where they want you to get up to be at work from 9 to 5. And so a lot of people, I think I had guilt about that baked in, or this idea that I should make sure to be disciplined about getting up by a certain time, even though I've been working on my own schedule now for many years. And I'm trying to let that go more so because I'm just nocturnal. It's just a fact. I feel so much better at nighttime. It's like night and day. The difference is stark. I just feel more creative and more relaxed and happier. And I like getting up early and doing things that are actually early, like the rare times I get up and go for a run or something. This is super rare, but like around sunrise or something, I can appreciate Earth and the cycles of Earth when I do that. But my body just feels better at night. And I wonder if a lot of femme people particularly feel that way. It makes me think about the moon and associations with feminine energy and stuff and creativity. I know that there are, like a lot of creative people who are super nocturnal. I'm thinking specifically about Joanna Newsom, like being a super night owl, as I understand. So yeah, I'm just trying to like continue to release more of these layers of conditioning that the old system has baked into me as a person who's, like been alive in it and had to go through these various, like legally live through these obligations of fucking having to go to school for X amount of time and whatever, and having to have jobs to have enough money to fucking, have a place to stay that's indoors and enough food and whatever. And thankfully I'm well beyond that point now, in which scarcity about money stuff seems to be something, knock wood, that I've moved through and released. There's just these various layers of conditioning about the way I'm supposed to live and the way I'm supposed to be that are totally of the old system, that as I get to know myself better and try to heal more stuff and release more stuff, mostly through Vipassana work. I mean, that's the most effective way by far that I found. It's just like I see more and more layers of that conditioning to be released. And I think it's really important. I understand that I have to do that on a personal level in order to be able to see more about what form seeds can take, the shape of seeds going into the future. Because it's, I think, just so different. It's going to have to be different. And with this rise of like a healthy balance of feminine energy, I think that's just going to be so different from anything we've known in our lifetime, in our current lifetimes. It's really going to take a lot of releasing and unlearning of the old way. And that includes, to segue back into what I was talking about initially in this podcast, the triggering external events that like activated the Sankara in me that made me feel particularly awful last week and into this week. Although, like I said, there's been some clearing with more meditation. It was Uvalde, on top of Buffalo, and how many other fucking mass shootings. I think I saw an article. I'm trying to some extent stay away from mainstream news. I'm trying to like not let the mainstream news like tell me what to read. I'm still seeking out information, and trying to be intentional about the information I'm seeking out through whatever valid news sources and blah, whatever. Yeah. Why is that relevant? Because I saw what was going on with Uvalde. I was going to say that I saw, again, not by choice, but this was put in front of me, just like another headline about it was something like 16 more mass shootings over the weekend. I'm recording this on a Wednesday in this fucking country that I still live in for some reason. And it doesn't feel like it's going to let me leave yet. I started looking at real estate in like Iceland, places that I know are supposed to be, I chose Iceland because it's supposed to be the best country in the world for women. But it just doesn't seem like I was looking at places in New York. Just doesn't seem like the energy or whatever is going to let me leave Los Angeles yet. I'm still supposed to be here for some reason. It just felt laborious and difficult to try and find another place, particularly outside of the United States. And so that was part of it, just the huge grief that so many people were feeling because a bunch of kids were needlessly slaughtered because this country it's just I don't even need to say it. I know so many of y'all who might be listening to this feel it too. It's just, how do you even put words on how awful that is? and how preventable it was. So there was that. And then also seeing that like Johnny Depp won $15 million for like abusing his wife in this fucking country after, you know, in a very similar case in a more evolved country. In many ways, you know, he was convicted of 12 out of 14 accounts of spousal abuse or whatever. So I've been feeling this distinction. It's more than a distinction. Just how it's worse. I mean, you can fucking look at rankings and stuff, right? Like the United States is like, you know, it's the richest country in recorded history, which is supposed to translate into a better quality of life. But capitalism makes that difficult. And the United States, although it's the richest country in the history of the world, in recorded history, you know, it's like the 53rd best country for women or something like that. And for some reason, I seem to interact with people who live in the UK pretty frequently. There's some connection there. Yeah, just through those interactions with friends who live there, it's like I'm seeing a widening chasm in terms of the sort of support for feminine energy and feminine people in those two places. And that really kind of sent me into more of a spiral. Just like, it was just such a strong, clear manifestation of what I've been feeling. And what I've been feeling was growing for a long period of time. And also the lack of language surrounding how to describe the injustice in that. I mean, I didn't even see people on Twitter, on social media generally. It was like it was embarrassing, or like there wasn't a way to like speak up about how what was going on was fucked up. I mean, I started tweeting once I started to realize that a lot of the social media push that was pro Johnny Depp was bots. I started tweeting about that, but I didn't see any other acknowledgement of that for a while. And then I saw more coverage, and I saw TikTok, a mutual on TikTok posted about it eventually too. And how that, I mean, they didn't sequester the jury. And so, I mean, it's from like a sociologic standpoint or something, it's interesting because similar forces to what helped Trump get elected were at play in this, employing these Russian bot farms. And the jury was almost certainly watching shit tons of that type of coverage. It's just crazy. Like it just like it quantified. Like he got $15 million and she got $2 million. It like put a specific value on what it is when a masculine person and a feminine person speak up. And I don't even want to equate what he was doing. Like, the way it made things equivalent is also really distressing. And I mean, I can speak to, like, I've said on this podcast before, I've talked about being sexually assaulted many times, like the fucking average woman, at least in this country. Like, I've experienced that. And after one of the rapes, it took years for me to heal enough to be able to do this, but I finally reached out to the cops about the rape, and it was like worse than actually fucking being raped. Like, it was awful. And the guy, years later, sent a demand letter. He had a lawyer send a demand letter to my parents' address. I think that was the only address he had in connection with me at that time. And yeah, it's just like this Depp precedent paves the way to embolden people like that. I mean, he didn't do anything after that. He didn't like actually sue me for speaking up about being raped by him. But certainly in this climate, with something like this just having happened, somebody like that is going to feel more confidence about using the legal system to further abuse. And it's fucking horrible. I mean, as I'm saying it, I just feel so much weight. I feel like a lot of weight on the back of my shoulders. I feel grief. And I feel this, it's cleared a little bit more now though. I've been feeling a lot of heart constriction lately. Like the sankara that's trying to clear is around my heart. And last night, actually, come to think of it, as I was lying in bed, I felt a lot of fear coming up, specifically on like the left third of my body. And I felt this sort of block in this left third of my body for a long time. And I associate that specifically with the feminine, my ability to bring more feminine energy in through this body. So that's cool that it seems like a lot of fear is releasing, because I think that's a huge barrier for me right now. It's like I can't even be around people. I'm such a fucking hermit, man. And like, if you knew me, if maybe some of you who are listening did know me, you know, even, I mean, especially back when I used to drink, but even like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, maybe a little more, I mean, I would have told you I was super social. And I was constantly interacting with people in different places and traveling all the time and getting fucking drunk. And like, there was something about, I think I've talked about this on this podcast before, that it was like the alcohol inhibited the part of me that felt like I was taking so much on, I guess, as an empath from other people. And so I could love them without feeling weighed down or angry about what of theirs I was taking on. Not that they necessarily asked me to do it or were even conscious of the fact that I was doing it. And without alcohol as that crutch, now I have to feel it. And I know eventually this will clear like everything else clears. And when I come out the other side of it, if I can do what I used to be able to do while drunk, when I'm sober, it'll be like a superpower. Because they really, people could feel that I love them. And I can do it on a stage now. Or in settings kind of like webcasts where it's like me sharing something without feeling that I have to take other people's stuff in. But I mean, even a couple weeks ago, I went to Massachusetts. I bought some land there and I'm going to build a house, and met with like 5 people at once. And I don't even remember the last time I was in a situation where I was like in a meeting with 5 people at once, physically in the same place. And I felt how much I was going out of my body and like being deferential to masculine energy that was dumber and lower vibration. And then I was really angry at myself for like, I felt like I was abandoning the feminine in different instances because I was being so deferential. And it was like this check that made me realize like how much I still do that. I mean, like before, especially when I, hadn't done any healing work at all, that I lived in that state constantly. So I was doing that all the time. And I was also around humans, other people all the time. And so, I never had a sort of respite from it. So it was kind of interesting to reinsert myself into the world a little bit for that purpose and realize how much of a pattern is still present. So all these various things contributed to just really feeling like I don't want to be on this fucking planet. And it's not suicidal per se. There isn't suicidal ideation associated with it for me. I'd say that, I've never attempted to be clinically diagnosed for depression, but my understanding of what the symptoms of clinical depression are, I feel confidence that this would fit like a clinical diagnosis for depression when I go through this sankara. And it clears. Like when I do Vipassana, it fucking clears. I don't think I've talked about this yet in the couple of episodes I've done on my experience with Vipassana, and I fully intend to in the future. That's the other fucking thing about this too, is like it makes it harder to talk. I've already spoken so much on this podcast about the difficulty I found in doing it and speaking through these energies and speaking through the stuff that's coming up in me, the trauma that's releasing in me. And it's like even stronger when I'm in this. It feels even more impossible to try and use language to articulate it. And it makes me angrier at language, too, like the limitations of language, how masculine language is. It's just the same, but what other media is there? I'm trying to get more into expressing myself in other ways through sight and sound. But it also feels like I'm just supposed to use writing in this lifetime, because I have always felt that I had some affinity for writing, and I have this relationship with writing it's mostly a hate relationship. But sometimes especially recently, I've written a couple essays that I share with the Seeds community, like through emails and in the blog, that felt like the writing felt like a creative expression that actually showed me and helped me to understand something about myself that I hadn't understood prior to undertaking that exercise. So that was better. But yeah, fucking language is just, it just feels like this narrow tube that I'm trying to I'm being forced to push these energies through, but they're everywhere. They're like, it's just, and things escape when I try to push them through this fucking tube. But because of the current, the level that we're at now as humans, there isn't yet a better way, at least that I have come across in my own growth. Maybe someday I'll fucking develop some awesome psychic ability that'll make that not necessary. Here's hoping. What? I just feel like I can receive information, but I don't feel that I can necessarily share it very well or shift energies very well without trying to use words. But maybe that's, I don't know. Maybe I'm doing more there than I realize I am. So yeah, I just wanted to speak, from this place where I'm feeling this feeling of not wanting to be on earth and share about it for anyone else that's felt that way. And I mean, I'm hopeful that anyone who may be listening who has had suicidal feelings, suicidal ideation, will maybe feel less alone or more encouraged, even though, as I said, that isn't exactly how this manifests for me. It's more like I don't want to kill myself. I just don't want to be here. It just feels like what I was starting to say before is that this particular Sankara of not wanting to be on earth came up really strongly in a Vipassana course. I mean, I've been experiencing it a lot prior to that Vipassana course, but during the course itself, it got especially bad. And I almost never talk to teachers at the courses. And if I do talk to them, I'll talk to them at the very end, like around day 10, or if it's a longer course. It'd be later in the course. But this was so bad that I remember I went and talked to the teacher on day 5. And it wasn't really that helpful, which is another reason I don't really talk to the teachers. I mean, you really have to walk the path yourself. Which isn't to say that you shouldn't talk to the teachers if you need guidance and that you can't get helpful information from other meditators. But I can only think of 3 teachers I've seen that I felt were really more advanced. I think my awareness has developed, but my equanimity still it's not caught up to my awareness. And Goenka, the main teacher, talks about how equanimity and awareness are like 2 wings of a bird. So they have to both, be balanced. So hopefully my equanimity will balance out more so. But I think my awareness has really strengthened and was probably already strong comparatively. Anyway, so later on day 5 of that course, it was around, I think it was after dinner, because I know I was in my little cabin, and the Sankara cleared. The strong feeling of not wanting to be on earth cleared. And I felt so much better. I remember feeling sort of astonished and overjoyed that it had cleared, and it had cleared so immediately. And that's the thing about Vipassana and clearing Sankara and stuff. It's you'll be in the throes of something that feels horrible. And suddenly it'll just be gone. And they tell you anicca, everything is constantly changing. Sooner or later, this too will change. You don't necessarily know whether it's going to be sooner or later, but it can happen very quickly. And that understanding of anicca, that understanding that things are constantly changing, is an integral understanding that you develop through Vipassana. So that was really fucking cool. And I came out of that particular Sankara of not wanting to be on earth for years. That was in, I think I said October of 2019 that I was at that particular course. And I didn't, because of COVID, I didn't do any courses in 2020. The first course I was able to do was in May of 2021 when they started kind of opening back up again. And I guess I could have gone in. I tried to go actually in early 2020 and didn't get accepted. And I think it was the energies trying to help me stay established where I was physically at that time, because I was also broke and thinking about moving to a center, because I thought I was going to get evicted from my apartment. And I think it didn't work out because the energies were trying to keep me in that apartment so that I'd have a place during COVID. So I think it actually was helping me. I think it's often helping me and us. It's that idea of like whether things are being done to you or for you. I mean, I do understand that things are being done for us constantly, and it's a matter of reframing the way we're looking at things to understand that and appreciate it. But yeah, after that big clearing of this particular Sankara in October of 2019, it seemed like it had largely lifted for a while. But I understand this is how it works. Like, these are different layers that are appearing. The way it was showing up in 2019 was different than the way it's showing up now. Like in 2019, I remember it being more like, I just felt like nothing could see me or appreciate me here. Appreciate isn't quite the right word. It wasn't like ego-y about like Rachel, which isn't to pass judgment on people who feel that they need that as the individual that they are. It was more like what I have to offer, like what this being is offering, and the energies I'm bringing through, like, can't be seen on earth. They can't be received here. So why am I here? Like, what's the point of being here when it's so fucking hard if that can't even come through? And now it's different. It was more just like, it feels more like being compressed, like really smushed down. And I feel the heart constriction again. There's a lot of grief in this, I think, that I'm releasing, and I think more fear coming up too. But especially, I was feeling the grief again earlier today. And there's a sense of isolation. And this feeling, I mean, part of the reason I'm making this podcast now is because when I talked to my friend Ryan after she reached out, and she said at one point that she, quote unquote, loved hearing me talk. And it's like, if one person finds value in what you're sharing, then it's worth it to share, even if it feels difficult to do. So like that helped me be reminded that if even one person gets value out of what I'm saying here and what I'm trying to do on earth and what I'm trying to do through seeds and whatever, then it's worth fucking doing. That has value. That's more than enough value. I'm kind of tearing up as I say that. But yeah, it's just like these energies make me feel so compressed and isolated. And I think that's what this stage of Earth's development or something does to the feminine. It like splits it off and makes people's experience of the feminine feel siloed. And that energy really wants to be connected and has a lot of power in that connectivity. And so it's a clever way of repressing it. But it can't last much longer, and I understand that. I know that Pam Gregory, the astrologer that I listen to the most, who I'm almost certain I mentioned on here before, she's talked about how 2022 is, it's like a pivot point year, I think she said. My understanding of what she means is that it's maybe one of the most difficult years in this progression of ascension that we're going through. And she said that 2032 is supposed to be like when the golden age starts, and other people have said that. I tried to look that up, and I could only find one author who had written about it in various books, and like the quality of her work didn't look super good. So I couldn't find other sources for that idea of this golden age happening in 2032. But Pam Gregory said that. Yeah, and she was saying like, because this is a midpoint, 2022 is midway between 2012, when things were starting, and 2032. It's hard. It's fucking hard this year. And it feels hard to me. It feels hard in a different way than last year, and harder. And I feel my heart again as I'm saying this, the compression in my heart. It's really in sort of like the left strip of my heart. It feels like a physical pain now as I'm talking. And yeah, so I understand it's something to move through, and the experience of being human is so much about moving through space and time and being in these physical bodies that die, that gradually disintegrate. And that's been another source of dismay for me too, because I don't feel like, I told my friend Ryan this too. I think the phrase "this body," referring to Rachel. I don't think using the phrase my body super often. It just feels like it's a body and like I'm in it and I don't understand it. And like it doesn't, I'm trying to take better care of it. I'm trying to like work with it and like align it and stuff. And it's all out of whack. I've gotten like more hormonal tests lately that show how messed up my hormones are, and I can't figure out diet and exercise still. I thought I was making some progress with that, but it just seems like, so I weighed myself this morning. My weight is up like a bunch, and like there's no reason that should be the case, I think, except for this weird hormonal imbalance, because like I'm exercising more and I was even tracking calories for a while, and it just feels like I don't fucking understand. Like I don't understand Earth. I don't understand what to do to be like my best shot at getting grounded on Earth is like grounding in this body and having it be aligned so it can receive stuff and I can fucking like have the healthiest, most balanced, like sensual experience I can have while I'm here. And it's like I can't even fucking do that because this body is so, it's just out of whack. And like, I mean, it's able-bodied. Certainly, I'm really fortunate in so many ways because this is like way easier than it is for a lot of people who don't have able bodies or whatever. But it's like, not or whatever. I'm sorry, I don't mean to sound, I hope I don't sound dismissive. But what I'm trying to say is that I feel that's part of this confusion in the sense that I can't do anything here, or like Earth just, it's just like sludge. Like the energies are like this sludgy, stuck, thick, mucky energy. And I'm isolated, and yeah, I think it's just going to continue to clear. I mean, it really feels like in the past when things are reflecting more on past strong, blocky Earth energies. Specifically for me, it was the money scarcity thing for a while, which is also so fucking made up because money isn't a physical reality of this plane. It's man-made. But it felt to me like I did everything I could to, for the most part, to get out of those scarcity energies. And then it felt like there had to be, and there eventually was, this external shift where the energies just really changed. And suddenly it was like, I heard somebody describe social justice this way once, where it's like you're trying to do stuff and you can't get anything through. And then like the culture shifts just enough that you have an opening and then things suddenly just flow in. It felt that way with like Earth energies changing enough regarding scarcity and like fucking generosity and capitalism. And then I was able to receive more, and then things really, really shifted in my physical day-to-day life in terms of like I just had more money and my living situation changed and got better, and that's like totally different, and it feels cleared in many ways. And now it's like I'm in that scarcity position in terms of finding people. I'd hired another male software engineer recently that I just let go. And I never hear, I at least haven't come across a female like tech founder who's spoken about the specific form of misogyny you can see. I've experienced, I think, so many different facets of this, because like the vast majority of software engineers are male, and even the female ones often have a ton more internalized misogyny than you might see in other places. So it's like you have to deal with that. And like I'm quote unquote non-technical, except what does that even mean? Because at this point I've built 95% of the current Seeds ecosystem with all its flaws, and like I even built, like the main thing that happened through this interaction with this recent hire that I just let go is that he broke a tool that I built. And I had to fucking follow up with him like 4 times to make sure that that was live, that was being used. And because he'd broken it and didn't fix it as he said he would, and then continued to not fix it, like I was left in a position in which there were 2 single moms who were in danger of homelessness who reached out to Seeds about help. And they couldn't use that tool, which is often used for that purpose. They can, if they need to get a seed and they can't afford gas fees to send a seed, they can make a small gift using this tool. It's like a variable gift tool, so you can choose the amount that you give. I don't know. I mean, this guy was better natured than other people I've worked with in the past. He at least wasn't viciously trying to attack and undermine me, like has been my experience with more than one past male software engineering hire. And it's not like I've been perfect in those interactions, or like I don't even know what it means to be a good boss. Like I just would try to, this is like a whole other thing, this idea of professionalism and how bullshitty it is. Like I think it's mostly about being authentic and like delivering on what you said you were going to do to the best of your ability. And if you realize you can't do that, communicating that you can't do that as soon as possible. And that's kind of it. And like, you know, trying to be generous and fair. But yeah, it's just like, I can't align with the right type of support to move things through. And then that means like, okay, do I just need to become a better coder myself so that I'm building the platform, I'm continuing to improve the platform myself, and I can do that, but it's going to take a while to learn because fucking like JavaScript is so stupidly designed. And I feel like that's just another manifestation of this bad masculine energy that I'm running into. So it's just like, it feels like it's hitting me on all sides, and that's an earth thing. At this stage of development of earth, we're still in this society that is largely founded on this unhealthy overemphasis on masculine energies. And a lot of people aren't even fucking thinking about that as a thing or aware of it. It's the water and like we're the fish. And so it just like stymies me in all these different directions. And that's another one. So, but I've realized that it's a scarcity mindset that I have regarding finding supportive energy through other humans, through other human collaborators. And it shows up more so if they're male people. So I think that'll clear eventually too. As soon as I get off of here, I'm planning to just go meditate for a while to try and clear more of this out. But yeah, if you're feeling this way, I just want you to know that you're not alone. And in my experience, it has cleared in amazing, immediate ways through Vipassana. And you know, the thing I'm most certain of is that Vipassana can help everybody out if you do it. So I'm trying to share that as often, as much as I can. And yeah, it's already June, thank God. This year will be over in 6 months. I don't know. Hopefully there'll be other breakthroughs that I'm able to have regarding like understanding this body and finding supportive energy in other places. I can't see how to do it yet, though. That's the other thing that's kind of made this feel a little harder, is that I don't see the path out. It's like it's obscured to me, for me, right now. And maybe the lesson there is that I'm just supposed to accept that this happens sometimes. Sometimes this is the reality, and like everything else, it'll eventually change. But it just feels hard. It feels hard right now. So yeah, if you're ever in that position, yeah, just know that it can change. And I hope that maybe this will make you feel a little less alone, and like there can be hope, that you can find hope when you look for it. And there are free Vipassana courses at 200 centers, 200 plus centers now around the world that you can check out. It's dhamma.org, and I'll put that in the description box when I post this to YouTube as well. dhamma.org. And yeah, it's the most wonderful thing I've ever found. So yeah, man, give it a shot if it resonates with you. So we'll see what happens. Maybe the next time I record one of these, I'll be in a very different place and I can talk more about that. But this is the reality that I'm in right now. So I thought I'd share it while I'm here. I appreciate you listening. Bye.